In Matthew and Mark, Jesus delivers a famous instruction after healing a possessed boy. This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. For generations, the popular consensus has been that Jesus is talking about a specific, elite tier of adversaries. The assumption is that some curses or spirits are just stronger than others and require a heavier arsenal to defeat. This creates a system where believers treat spiritual warfare as a transaction. You put in the hours of fasting and prayer, and in exchange, you receive the spiritual strength necessary to clear the room. Under this framework, battling darkness is an endurance sport. The prevailing thought is that you have to grind your way to victory, relying on your own discipline to build up enough spiritual muscle to push back the enemy. But treating prayer and fasting like a spiritual leveling up system misses the mark. Building a theology on this transactional idea warps our understanding of how spiritual authority actually operates. If depriving yourself of food generated a massive surge of offensive combat power, we would expect to see the enemy running away from anyone who fasts. But biblical history shows us a different dynamic. Think about Jesus in the wilderness. The adversary didn't attack while Jesus was full and rested. He waited strategically. The tempter made his move right at the end of a 40-day fast, when Jesus was at his point of maximum physical depletion. We see this again in the book of Daniel. In chapters 9 and 10, Daniel enters a fast to seek understanding and mourn before God. He was so focused on this internal process of seeking God that he wasn't even aware of the cosmic battle occurring between the angel Gabriel and the principality of Persia until the fight was already over. These moments show that fasting doesn't function as a weapon to terrify the opposition or rack up combat stats. The enemy clearly isn't intimidated by a lack of food. So if prayer and fasting fail to scare off adversaries, why did Jesus prescribe them for dealing with this kind of situation? To find out, we have to look closely at who Jesus was actually talking to. There is a basic rule when reading these ancient texts. Let the Bible interpret itself. To decipher what Jesus meant by this kind, we have to read the exact question that triggered his response. In the Gospel of Mark, the entire conversation happens in private, away from the crowds and the possessed boy. The disciples pull Jesus aside to ask him about their very public failure. They ask him a highly specific question: why could we not cast it out? Jesus is giving a direct answer to that specific inquiry. He isn't knocking out a spiritual hierarchy of demons. He is diagnosing the specific reason for the disciples' personal inability to get the job done. The roadblock in this story isn't the strength of the spiritual adversary. The real problem is entirely internal. It is a fatal flaw in the condition of the disciples themselves. To understand that flaw, you have to look at their recent history. In Luke chapter 10, these same disciples returned from a mission trip celebrating because even the demons submitted to them. That past success created a dangerous side effect. They began to view spiritual authority as a personal attribute they now possessed. When they asked why they couldn't cast out the demon, they revealed they were looking at their own track record as the source of the miracle. When Jesus refers to this kind, he is identifying this specific internal condition. He is exposing a posture of stubborn pride that assumes spiritual power is a personal possession rather than a continuous gift from God. Prayer and fasting function as the remedy for this ego. These practices force a person to acknowledge their own physical and spiritual hunger, stripping away the illusion of self-sufficiency. The disciples failed because they tried to run on the fumes of their past victories instead of maintaining a total present dependence on divine authority. The reality is stark. Human beings possess no independent authority to confront adversarial forces. We don't have the power to cast anything out through our own efforts. That weakness is matched only by the absolute sovereignty of Christ. Matthew's Gospel states plainly that all authority belongs exclusively to him. In the grand scope of God's spiritual plan, adversarial entities are like dust under his feet. They possess no structural power against him whatsoever. True spiritual effectiveness requires completely abandoning the pursuit of personal power and recognizing that Christ holds exclusive jurisdiction. Fasting is an internal mechanism. It is a physical act of lowering yourself, designed to foster a deep personal submission to God. The prayer Jesus modeled, Hágase tu voluntad, or Thy will be done, keeps the believer aligned with God. James outlines the sequence: submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. Spiritual victory is the result of complete internal submission. We find ultimate strength the moment we stop trying to be the source of the power and simply lower ourselves in humble reliance.